All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hylics 2. If you've never seen this game before, I'm sorry. This game is a turn-based RPG made with a very unique art style. And not only is the game just visually very wild, I'm going to be breaking it pretty hard. So make sure y'all have fun with that. I'm going to be getting started. We good to go? All right, going to be getting started in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so first order of business, this game's default mode of movement requires a run button, so I'm just going to turn that off. So Hylics 2, as I mentioned, is a turn-based RPG with an isometric overworld that really kind of doesn't have a lot of invisible walls. We'll be making use of that. So very first order of business in the game, our movement is kind of basic, so we're going to want to upgrade that. And also get some party members because it is an RPG, and the more bodies we have, the better. So we're going to the main palace of the main city here, New Moldal. If none of the names in this game make sense to you, they don't to me either. But once we get up to the palace here, we're going to get Pongorma, our first party member, and he's going to give us the ability to air dash, which we are immediately going to make very weird use of. So in my inventory, I have this item called the mini crystal, and the mini crystal is kind of like a prevention if I get stuck. It lets me warp back to the last loading zone or Wayne House, which is like where the game starts. If I make a save and then load a save, I can manipulate where my last loading zone is, use the mini crystal to warp to where I saved, and if I put that position in midair and then load the mini crystal from the ground, I can just jump out of the sky. So I'm in this treasure vault I'm not supposed to be in until right before the end of the game, and not only is there a lot of money in here, but there's also some very good pieces of gear. So I'm going to be collecting all of that and making sure I have 300 something coins. And then I'm going to a few more. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm just going to warp back to the initial spawn point, which is Wayne House, which is the start of the game. This teleport back to Wayne House thing is very helpful because this game's normal mode of fast travel isn't actually that fast. So we're kind of just going to opt to use the mini crystal to get around the map quicker than any other method. But now it's time to head towards the first dungeon of the game. We have to rescue the king from up north. So we're just going to move across a few islands with our air dash and make it to Vilax's edifice. So usually what you do here is you have to go all the way up this giant tower, fight a boss, get a key from the boss, come back down, and open these jail cells. And with those jail cells, you can free the king from inside because he's locked up in them, obviously. We can do one better. I'm going to drop a save right here just in case something bad happens. But nothing bad should happen. There's just an enemy on these stairs. Yeah, I'm going to need to dodge him. Where are you going, dude? He sees me. I can jump over him. There we go. We can use that bit of geometry on the stairs to just jump over the jail and talk to the king from inside. And that transports him back to the city without us actually needing to fight the first boss. So we can just warp out. I did forget one small thing. I'm going to do this in this order. So that's, yeah, now we have our third party member, Desmond, and we skipped the first boss. So next order of business is to go get a few things from the main city before we never come back here. First order of business is skills. So I mentioned this game is a turn-based RPG. It has a very heavy focus on status effects. Pretty much everything in this game applies a status effect of some form, and we're going to use that to our advantage here by heading down to the mines down here, grabbing this burrito just in case for a backup later, and giving a juice box to this dude who then gives us a key. This key gives us access to Soul Crisper, the only skill we're going to be unlocking, the only extra skill we're going to be unlocking in the run. It's pretty simple. It just does damage to enemies and then sets them on fire, which does damage over time. And damage over time really is the name of the game here. It's one of the best things you can do to like deal with really tough bosses while being very under-leveled, which this game's like level up system, it doesn't really have one, but you can upgrade your stats via like extra side things in areas we're not going to ever. So we're going to be doing a lot of this just based on gear instead of like levels or strength like that. So I go to the store down here with the money I got earlier to get a few pieces of gear, and now I'm gonna put all of those on just for a fight we're gonna do in a little bit. Coming up next though, I'm gonna do something really weird. I'm going to open the control menu, but use my mouse to click it open twice. And the reason I do this is because I now have the stored menu that will activate in this cutscene. Never mind, I messed it up. Usually what would happen is I would have an extra menu, control menu right here, and I would close out of it, and the game would give me action back, and that would allow me to use the mini crystal to skip this cutscene, because the way cutscenes work is they're just kind of considered their own map in the game. So if I were able to open my menu, I could use the mini crystal to warp back to Wayne House out of the cutscene, and the game would let me. Unfortunately, I didn't do the menu storage correctly, so we unfortunately have to watch this whole cutscene. But I still get to do one more cool skip because I do need to... Yeah, I need to back one other thing up, so I will still be warping back to Wayne House, usually after the skip is done. You would get warped to Wayne House as a result of the mini crystal sending you. But I was kind of banking on getting that skip a little bit, so I did not go up here and get clean. So clean is a really helpful status effect where we are immune to any negative status effects for the first 2 turns of a fight, and we're going to be abusing that in our first fight to pretty much make the enemies work for us. But before that, I get to show off one cool skip. Usually when you do the cutscene skip, you are not in the city, so it's slightly faster to do another one of those jumps with the mini crystal out here to get to the airship without having to re-enter the city. So I'm just going to go back to the last spawn and, yeah, just climb up this structure. All right, so coming up next, we're finally getting into our first fight of the run, as I mentioned. So I get to fly over to this island over here with the airship, and the airship is just going to kind of be our main method of going around the map for the rest of the game. We're not going to do much else. So just right up here, I'm going to have my first fight of the run as soon as I jump into these enemies. So immediately what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack this guy on the right, and he's going to put the entire field to sleep. However, since I have 3 party members that are immune to negative status effects, they're not going to go to sleep, but all the enemies are, and we can just kind of team up on them before they wake up. We're going to be using 3 skills in this fight for the first time. The first one I used is Dissolution, which is Wayne's character-specific skill. So every character has their own specific skill, and then we got Soul Crisper, which any party member can use. Dissolution is another damage over time, similar to Burning, except it makes the person affected by it actually do less damage. The next skill we're going to use is Pangorma's character-specific skill, Lightning. It's just really strong. It does 175% of his base power, but it stuns him for the next turn, so he can't act next turn, which is pretty bad. And then the last one is Soul Crisper here. As you can see, it lights the enemies on fire, and I did something wrong in this fight. It's fine. It lights the enemies on fire. It's not very helpful. So I'm doing a little bit of a backup here. I do not have... Okay. I was supposed to light the person on the right on fire. That way they took damage like throughout the fight and would die in one hit. However, since burning happens every time you take damage, what's going to happen here is he's just going to explode after putting me to sleep. So that's the end of the first fight, and we get a key to a pod up north. Basically, we have to stop a villain trying to revive the game's previous villain, so we need to get rid of the shield around his castle. So that's what we're doing here. But I have a quick menuing section I'm going to do. Just put here. And there we go. So now we're ready to go up north and take on probably the hardest part of this run. So get ready for this to take multiple tries if I don't get very lucky. But we're heading into the worm pod, which is another very trippy part of this game. We're going through a maze where basically the path appears in front of us, but you don't have to wait for the visual of the path to appear before you can walk on it. So it's at some points it might look like I'm just walking on nothing, but I know where I'm going for the most part. Just need to go up here to the right, and then there's a bunch of circles here that I can walk across. Once I get to these coins, there's a path I want to take right here, path I want to take right here, and we're just kind of moving left. And so yeah, coming up we have the second boss of the game, the first boss of the run, and the biggest like luck-based like check here where I might just get owned. So I'm gonna put a safety save right before in case something happens. And then I'm gonna try and do menu storage again. There we go. And I'm gonna try and keep this menu through the fight. So this is the worm. He is not very nice. This first turn, thankfully, thanks to all the gear we have, we are moving before, all four of my characters are moving before him in the fight. But after this first turn, he is going to apply fast, which fast makes him get 2 actions in a turn, which is really scary. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a lightning to chunk his health a fair bit, and also just make sure that my damage over times are set up, because both of his actions on a turn count as a different proc of the damage over time, like the timer for it, so they can fade away really fast in this fight. So I'm going to reset up the fire, and then he's going to do this attack twice to put my entire party to sleep. And then he's going to do 2 more random attacks. We are hoping he does 100 kick, which is this, because it wakes up the entire party again, and now they're fine. And now we just do a few more attacks, and after this one, he should die, if not this turn, next turn. So yeah, he's going to attack 2 more people, but Somsnos is still alive, and that's the end of the fight. First try, thankfully. All right, so coming up with this menu storage, there is a weird side effect of this one that doesn't happen in any other menu storage cutscene skip in the game, where the menu is invisible during that cutscene skip in particular, and I'm not sure why, but thankfully I know what like inputs I need to do in the menu, and we're now heading on to the third area of the game. So with that worm down, the shield around the castle area is down. So I'm gonna go fly over there now. Usually there's like a giant force field on the little like town to the right now, but I have to go land at the other side of this island because you can only land your airship on like designated landing points. So there we go. And I'm gonna do another quick menu. I'm going to take both of these things off of Somsnosa so that I can put them on different characters. And then there we go. And now she's set up for the fight. There is one piece of gear I'm going to be getting in the fight. I fell in the water. That's fine. I just respawn up here. There is a piece of gear I'm going to be getting in this area that I'm going to be giving to Pongorma. So do not worry about the fact that he is currently without a glove. He will have a really good one soon. So this area is really funny because we're going to apply another classic Hylics 2 speedrun strat where we skip an area where we're supposed to kind of go back and forth with a few items by just going to the first spot and then skipping everything. So I'm going to make my way over to this bridge up here, and usually you'd have to like go across the whole map twice to get the key to raise this drawbridge. But I'm just gonna do a mini crystal jump, so I'm gonna save and then load. Make sure I land on the bottom of the bridge here, like that, and then use the mini crystal. And once we finish warping, we should just make it to the palace. There we are. All right, so headed down here. I should be fully healed. Yep, okay, good. I'm gonna jump over this enemy, and I wanna get a piece of gear down here. All right, I'm gonna put this gear on now, and also while I'm in this menu, I'm going to go into my items, and I have these items that permanently buff damage, and I'm gonna give both of them to Samsnosa, who's going to do a lot of that. Like 2 damage is really gonna actually add up throughout this fight, and this next fight has a really like weird dynamic to it. So once I get out of here, I'm going to drop a save before this fight just in case something bad happens. And this is a Dozier and Carcero. So this, as you can see, there are 2 of them. This fight has a really interesting dynamic where depending on what you do to one character determines how the other will act. The main kind of setup is that the Carcero on the right starts every turn wrapped, and wrapped means he is immune to damage, but if you hit him, he'll like tank the hit and then unwrap where he's vulnerable. And if Carcero is not wrapped at the end of the turn, a Dozier will always use his turn to re-wrap, which is really good. So I picked up these cupcakes earlier, which are really good healing items, because right now Pangorma is vulnerable, which means he would take double damage from the next attack. But when you get defending status, which like halves the damage you take from a next attack, which cupcakes grant you, it actually overrides the vulnerable status, which is really helpful for making sure we're still doing good damage here. Unfortunately, I got hit with Pangorma Dissolution, which means not only is he still taking damage over time, but he's also like weakened right now. So this fight might get a little bit closer than I want it to. This is the only use of Samsnosa's signature skill, Wave Artifice, which is just a small damage over time, or a small multi-target hit that we kind of use for a little bit of like rounding here, because again, we don't want these bosses to kind of die at the wrong time, because it will leave a lot going on. Unfortunately, Pangorma got hit a lot, so I'm going to use another healing item on him, which I usually wouldn't want to in this scenario, because I want to get the damage over time back onto a Dozier on the left, but I want to make sure that, yeah, Carcero is going to die to damage over time next turn. Finally, in this fight, he decides to hit somebody else, thankfully. So he's going to die to the fire next turn, which means I can just start focusing my offense on beating down a Dozier in the middle here. And unfortunately, I have a lot of characters with a lot of statuses, but I think at this point, with the damage I'm dealing, we should still be good for just the rest of the fight. Yep, there's one. And he's going to use lightning himself, which is great, because just like Pangorma's signature lightning, it does leave him stunned. So literally just like 1 or 2 more hits, and that is the end of the third boss.
Congratulations. Do we have time for a couple donations?
Give me 1 moment to do 1 more cutscene skip, and then I will be all set. So this cutscene skip, I'm going to set it up, and there we go. There's going to be a little animation here, and then a fight where I'm going to forcibly lose it, and then I'm going to skip the cutscene, and then we're going to be flying up to the final dungeon of the game. So with that being said, go for the donations.
All right, we have a donation, $10 from Jensen. Looks like we might be on the start of a $10 hype chain. All right.
We're all good?
Yep, all good.
All right, yeah, there we go. So that's the cutscene skip. And then there is one more equipment I need to do, but that is going to be after we go to the final dungeon. So just need to go over here. And also, I have not talked about it, but this little station right here, you can use it to recall your airship right here, which means it's usually pretty good. Because of this game's fast travel, usually your airship tries to stay where you last put it, but that can cause a lot of problems, so they put a little station right there just so you can get it back wherever. And especially because of like how this game's travel works, again, it's just really nice to have that. So we're going to go up here, and we're going to do one more equipment for the run, where I take these off. You get these. You get this. And you get these. All right. So now we're heading into the final dungeon. We're skipping a lot of it again. Hi. My favorite words to say. So usually we're supposed to go all the way up to drain a pool and then go all the way down. We're going to skip that by ramming ourselves into this wall. We kind of get stuck between two walls, and when the game notices that we're stuck in midair, it eventually forces us into a grounded state. We're allowed to jump again right after, and so we can use that to just kind of scale that wall and hit this switch, which means that we skipped climbing all the way up the dungeon, draining a pool, going all the way back down to that pool, and then getting a key from there, which is usually what we need to hit that switch. So that's like a lot of time and save. And then we're going to do one more mini crystal jump right here. I'm going to save load and then use the mini crystal to just jump around this key door. This one does not save too much time, but the room that is inside the key door, there's like one room, and it is like the most annoying room in the game. Before that skip was found, I would lose so many runs at the end of the game to that room. I'm going to do one more save load, not for a mini crystal jump here, just for a general warp, because we have to go down this pool here in order to get the vessel room key, and it's just faster to warp back up after that's done instead of climbing the dungeon manually. So with that being done, we just have to make sure we dodge this enemy right here who is on my tail, but that should be the last like scary part of the run, and then we just have the final boss, who isn't too bad unless they're really mean, which is like, I mean like really, really, really mean. So yeah, nothing too bad should happen. I will drop a save just in case, you know, never can be safe enough, but we're going to talk to Gibby here, and we're going to be getting into the final boss. Very first turn, I'm going to do something that might seem a little funny. I'm going to go into my items, and I have a dubious berry, which is, it heals you, but it also poisons you at the same time, and we can give it to the bosses. So we're going to give that to Gibby here, just so he starts off with an extra damage over time status for the first couple turns. And this fight is really interesting from the speedrun perspective because of how we can kind of use his AI against him. Pretty much every time we attack Gibby directly, like with a damage-dealing move, he will reflexively summon a minion, which are these progenies, that's what they're called, on the right side of the screen. And Gibby's attack pattern is usually based around how many of these minions he has on the screen. The big reason why this matters is because a minion does not spawn on the turn, or does not move on the turn that they're spawned, and is also slower than Gibby. So Gibby has an attack that he likes to do when 4 or more minions are on screen called Killer Trees. And Killer Trees is a really scary damage over time that will, at the same time, destroy every progeny at once. So we kind of try and get him to cycle to do Killer Trees every other turn, so that he will not do it every turn, because if he does it every turn, it's really scary and it does a lot of damage. But if he does it like every other turn, his minions will still never get a chance to move, which is good because they do a lot of damage and they can heal Gibby as well. Meanwhile, they still will get destroyed. Will have the health to live, which is really good. That being said, that's kind of the general pattern of this fight. There's not too much else to it. So if you have any announcements you want to make, go for it.
Sure, and keep in mind, we do have a bid war incentive, an incentive open for play all the bonus songs for Ostatake Oendan. And we do have a couple donations. We have Moro donating $20. Give it up for Moro, everybody. There we go. And we have Zeb the Hyena, who says giggle cackle and donates $10. Thank you very much. Thank you both.
All right. So Dedesmond got hit, which I failed to mention is a slight diversion in the route. We get to see the last character's specific skill. This is Dedesmond's foam armor. It heals the target and also it also increases their max HP for a few turns after the heal. Dedesmond just does not have enough health to survive a killer trees after a teardown, even if he gets the defending status from the cupcake. So that's why we want to use the foam armor on him if he's the one that gets hit. Also, all of the characters that we have just got down to exactly 1 HP at once, except for Dedesmond's at 21. That's intentional. This fight, very thankfully for us, very underpowered right now, does have a few gates in mind where Gibby will intentionally not one-hit kill you from maximum health or high enough health thresholds. And Dedesmond is the only character that does not meet that threshold naturally, which is why that foam armor matters. But everyone else, as you can see, they're at 1 HP, and now after this Cloud Germ, they're going to be at full health. So we're nearing the end of the fight. This is where things are going to get a little bit luck-based with who gets hit by attacks, because we don't want to deal, or we don't want to heal anymore. We just want to go on the offensive here. So unfortunately, Wayne got hit by that teardown. He is going to be going down after this turn. So I'm going to just keep attacking here. And we're going to have one last Killer Trees. Again, during this Killer Trees, Wayne is going to go down. So salute. See you, buddy. And now whoever Gibby hits next is kind of interesting, because Pangorma right now is stunned. He's not going to get his action next turn, so we're only going to have 2 actions this turn. I'm going to make sure Gibby gets lit back on fire. And then after one more minion summoned, Dedesmond is going to deal damage here, and I want to see who gets hit here. Okay, Pangorma. Yeah, okay. So we're going to have to take a little bit of time. Usually if Pangorma was alive, you would just use lightning to kill him. The way that progenies work is that any of them that are not spawned on the turn that Gibby summoned them, if Gibby dies that turn, they'll die. So we don't want to spawn any on the final turn, because those ones will actually live and we'll have to fight them after he dies, which is just more time loss. So after this small cutscene, there's going to be 20 seconds of movement, and time is going to be, there's going to be a button at the top of the hill. Game's going to be over when I hit that button. So we get to see the castle fall. We've thwarted his plans. We did the thing. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna fall on stage here. Actually, I can show this off. We're gonna fall on this stage, and you can pick up the instruments and play them. I don't really know how to play them. But once the world kind of fades into color here, we can go down here. And this is the hill where the button's at the top. So get ready on time. And time. All right. So that's Hylics 2. Game's great. If you want to play it, you absolutely should. If you want to play the first one, just know it's even weirder. But I recommend it to death. First game's $3, and this one's $15. And I didn't even show off a bunch of the optional stuff in this game. I learned 1 skill throughout the run. There are 9 total, so finding those is really fun. Gonna give a few shout-outs here to RJ Smankit and Brutely. They know a lot about this game. A lot of the glitches were found by them. A lot of the fights were figured out by them, so shout-outs to them. They know a lot about this game. And we're very excited to see a new person pick it up when I picked this up last year, so shout-outs to them. I want to shout out to just kind of any of my friends that tuned in. I know there's a few people in the audience that were like, when's your run? I'm going to try and catch it. And I know there's a few people that couldn't go, but shout outs to you too. Last event, I almost had like a horrible thing happen with the hotel, and my mom saved me last second, so I shouted her out. She didn't have to save me that hard this year, but shout outs to my mom anyways, because she's awesome and she's my mom. Shout outs to Mason Lindroth and Chuck Salamone, the 2 people that worked on this game. That's right, this whole game was a 2-man effort. Because I did this game at another event 2 months ago, and they were like super involved in that, and I was like very surprised but very pleased by it, so thank you 2 so much. Also just for making the game in general, it's incredible. And I don't have much else to say other than shout outs to Fastest for not only running this, but also I've been a part of the team the whole time, and it's been amazing. And I hope that everyone who enjoyed this run enjoys the next day and a half we still have left of speedruns. So thank you all so much. And there we go, that's the final screen. So thank you so much.